I am here.
Hey.
So I can turn off this water here so it doesn't spill over the sink.
It's farm life.
Into my cave. Sit down looking through the pane out of the mirror. What can I do for you?
When I last talked to you, Glenn,
hang on, I'll switch to a better phone here.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of wanted what you were saying to me the other day. I thought like everybody should hear that.
Who we got on today?
It's just right so far. It's me and Dana, but I think Brandon from Ontario.
Yeah.
But it's going to be. It's recording this, so other people might hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's another.
Okay, Danny.
And there's another. Oh, sorry.
Okay, what do you want to know?
You were saying something. You said something.
I said a lot of things.
Yeah, you do. You said a lot of things. There's something about a few things about posting or something like that makes you feel good. You're not seeing. He said hope and faith are two different things. You're not seeing anything to make you think or believe something, and then you said.
What we said is that there is really no answer to solving the problem that we live with today.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, unless we're prepared to hand it over to creation to help resolve the problem, we're just spinning our wheels using language which everybody interprets differently. What we're left with is a choice, hope and faith. Hope because it has O&E in it, just like the word home and bone, other words that have the O&E in it, like one, basically indicates that it's up to you. Starts with you, person. Whereas faith is ITH, which is ETH or the, and FA, which is Father. The Father is who you're handing the job to. We were born of matter. We were hijacked by pater. In Latin, that's mother and father. So the choice is, if you hand it over to Father, he's got a different agenda. So no faith should come into your life. Hope is what you have going for you. Hope that creation will take back command. You don't delegate any of that power of one that you have to a politician who works for Father or ecclesiastic Freemasonry. So that's the hope and faith part of what we talked about. And I said, although we can't change other people, giving out information to the masses might just come across the hands of somebody with a functioning brain. They might start to ask questions themselves, do a search themselves, come to the same conclusion you would if you did a search, not expecting to find the answer at the first place you look, but at the totality of the evidence over time, over a lifetime. Preponderance of the evidence will prove beyond any reasonable doubt. No need to look for aliens. We were born here on the planet. As we discussed last time, I think we talked about coniferous and deciduous trees and how the pine tree had to come first to provide cover for deciduous trees to grow later. Deciduous trees are stronger, but they have a lot more trouble getting started than. Therefore, the pine of a human being is the spine, and it's the original part of who we were. And if you search the languaging, you come across a gland called the pineal gland. Pine with AL, the French feminine principle at the end. Pineal gland makes a chemical called melatonin.
Yeah.
Ask anybody who are in that business about melatonin, and they'll say it's very difficult to find a need for melatonin within the human structure. It is, in fact, a product found in fish and in reptiles, and I think specifically eels. And it's got the word pine in it. Show you where the beginning was. And at the beginning, there was a rock in which rain fell, water gathered. In that water grew plants. The bottom of the ocean is filled with cucumber-like tubular plants. They grow around fissures where there's light and heat that comes from the bottom rather than expecting any light to come through 2 or 3 miles of water from the sun. They get their light from the fissures underground. They create these plants who evolve over time when they break off and continue to live on their own, who evolved into fish and reptiles, eels. Eventually, through the millennia, made their way up in the water, and the water was changing. The original water was fresh water, of course. But as life dies, and sodium salt is a big component of human or vegetable or animal life, that salt has to go someplace. It goes into the ocean. It turns the ocean from fresh water into salt water. And there's a percentage of salt that can be made to assist life in water. If you go beyond that percentage, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was the range between 7 and 11% salt in the water makes it adaptable to creating life easier than fresh water. From that came out eels who saw land. as volcanoes exploded and made islands. These animals of the sea wanting to go on land had to get over broken plants and stuff like that, tree trunks in the water. By the way, the word trees is a code word for seers. If you read it backwards, and an S and a T are interchangeable. And they're the archivists. The trees keep a record of what was the temperature in a certain area over the last 20, 50, 100 years. Some large trees can last much longer. But by cutting through, you can see that. The animals that crawled out of the water, like reptiles, turtles in particular, laid eggs and then returned to the sea. They had a shell to protect them while they were out of the water. Eventually, animals that came out of the water stayed with the eggs until they hatched. My suggestion is that the first animal walked on land, an original dinosaur, much about the size and shape of a cat. And it gave birth to animals that got bigger, the dinosaurs, bigger, and it climbed in trees and gave birth to the ape families, and it jumped from branch to branch, which eventually gave rise to wings, created birds. And over time, the first experiment was basically size. The bigger you are, the tougher you are, the more likely you are to survive. In the long run, that proved not to be the case, because they're not around anymore. New experiment proved that size only matters if it's linked to brains, to intelligence, to reason. And reason is linked to intuition. And intuition is the original part of the body, which has gray matter in it, the same way as the brain has gray matter. And it transfers its knowledge, DNA-based knowledge, through the neck, goes through the medulla that sorts it and passes it on to the brain. So physically, we can prove continuity in the life of plants, animals, mammals coming out of the ocean. There's no need to go looking for any quote-unquote aliens from another planet. The other places that'll go looking for earthlings one day would survive. The words, the phonetics of the words, the letters within a word, the syllables within a word, the pictographs made from letters and words are all part of a coding structure that allows a small minority of people, quote unquote, knights, who were a combo unit. On one hand, they were soldiers. On the other hand, they were priests. They could tell you what you should believe, and if you didn't believe it, they could whack you over the head, beat it into you. Then it got to be too much work for one person to be the enforcer as well as the lawgiver. So they split themselves up into two categories. They face each other on the pyramid. They have their assistants facing each other on the other two sides of the pyramid. So ecclesiastics on one side, military on the other. And then you have business on one side and politics on the other. Agents that control the masses. One of the ways you control mass is war, pestilence, famine, disease. You need bureaucrats. You can have different groups that control, but they all work for the same task. They're all heading in the same direction, the top or the cap of the pyramid. Religion, such as you have in Islam, wants to be the boss of the entire world. Soldiers create fascist governments so that they can rule the world. Business is the retirement place for soldiers. Politics is the retirement place for ecclesiastics. Neither one of them to worry about survival except from their own kind. The masses pay taxes so that these four groups don't have to worry about an income. Over at the top, you look at Giza, the capstone's missing. That's what they want to build, is a capstone on the planet, the cap continent. By the destruction of life on the planet, leaving only Antarctica and a cap continent shaped like Sherlock Holmes's hat in the north, they have what they're looking for. And then they can go and apply their love and care, tender love and care, all over the solar system and exit the solar system and reclaim anything of value on the comets in the Oort cloud. And when they've done that, they want to go conquer the rest of the universe.
Masters of the universe.
Yeah. The guys that call themselves Neanderthalers are telling you up front, we're the Deans. We're the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. Saurs is ruse. It's a ruse because the dinosaur wasn't the first. The cat was. So in Canada, which is part of the Cap continent, some of Canada, in a place called Winnipeg, they produce the dollar coins. I was very shocked one day when I said, dollars means dollars. And a German listening to me said, no, it isn't. It's a dollar coin. There is a big difference between a paper dollar and a dollar coin. And I couldn't understand what the difference was until I saw the place called Winnipeg, who have the mint for making coins in Canada produce metal coins for, first of all, $1, which is made out of what appears to be an amalgam of copper. It's the color of excrement. It goes dull and looks like shit. And they called it a loonie. The only place we used to associate loonies to were lonesome birds out on a lake by themselves, yelling out at night, "I'm all alone." Or people who occupy an asylum, nuts or crazy. And that's what they meant we were when they produced the loonie. But for the future, they have produced a $2 coin. And they call it a toonie. The reason is it's a pseudo-hermaphrodite. It is, the toonie has a loonie in the middle. It's shrunk down to about half its size, which says the infrastructure of the coin is that brown piece in the middle called mail. Surrounding it to make an equal size to the original loonie when the two of them are put together is a part made out of nickel. Has Ick in it, like David Icke, like Eisenhower. And it looks like metal that you would find in a nickel, similar to what you find in a dime or a quarter or a 50-cent piece. And that's an amalgam of a lot of different things. A pseudo-hermaphrodite needs to have a medulla to receive messages. It has to have a communications, two-way communications device. It has to have computing power. It has to have a device that solidifies its need to report home. And it's the bright stuff. It's the shiny part of it. And if you take a loonie and you put it on a toonie, you'll notice that the toonie is just a tiny, tiny bit larger in its radius, diameter. The difference is there's a rim around it. There's a coffee chain in Canada called Tim Horton. Horton means the root. Tim is Tom. Tom can also be Sam, the root. But in Tim Hortons, they have a contest, which they call Roll Out the Rim to Win. Rim, backwards in Russian, mir, means sun.
Mm.
What that means is you need to cover up this boy called Sue with a more attractive exterior. Nothing is more attractive than the exterior of a woman. Therefore, concept of what you see is not what you get. Is born. What you see in a perfect slave is not a woman, but a wee man hiding inside a veneer that looks like woman. The outer edge like a hill. Ari.
Yeah, Glenn, it's funny that you say that with the wee man. I have a friend of mine, he's like he makes his own films, and he said that he knows this a lady he knows who's kind of successful in that industry, film industry. And he's like, yeah, she's really successful. She's in this movie, and they even made little bobbleheads, dolls of her. And I was thinking, that could have been a little message. They're making bobbleheads out of this person.
Bobbleheads are yes men.
Yeah.
You cannot say no when you're in a rocking chair. By the way, I have a message for you, Gerd, from a 55-year-old director of nursing in Ogdensburg, New York. She says, today's piece is the best you've done.
Oh.
On Ogdensburg.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I'm just passing on the message.
I'll try.
Is that it? Have we got enough for today?
Unless, Dana, you have any questions, or Brandon?
Thanks for your contribution, Dana.
Yes, anytime.
I picked up some feed for the chickens this morning.
That's good. That's good. How's it holding up over there with the weather?
Well, it's cold, but not beyond acceptable. As long as the temperature stays in the range of 15 below or higher, going in the opposite direction towards zero and up, it's okay. It's the work that we have on the farm is for about 4 or 5 people, and
right.
Tom in the house helping out, and I have to handle everything else. I don't have time to get cold. Plus, I'm building a raft, so my task is to cut down 1 tree per day, January, February, and March, and start assembling the raft or finalize the assembly, because I've built the infrastructure, finalize the assembly of it in the month of April. Hopefully I'll be in time for the month of May, hem. And I expect that we might begin to see some water flow. I'm told that Fargo, which has Rego in it, by the way, if you change the A to an E, is already basically close to being underwater. North Dakota, and that's
right
south of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the Red River is bulging, and they have plenty of snow that will add to the melt. And the border crossing there is Emerson. It's a code word linked to the word immersion. It's like a baptism. You get immersed in water. Above Winnipeg, which stands for Mini Gap, are the two lakes, Winnipeg and Winnipeg-Osis. They're like two big bathtubs that are about to overflow. So I would expect a lot of water to accumulate in the region of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, starting in about the month of April or May. And then when you move east from there, you have Lake of the Woods, which is woods, trees, cedars. It's basically the cleanup after you've gone to the washroom in a European bathroom. It's called a bidet. It's made to wash after going to the bathroom. But then you hit Mother Superior. Mother Superior is 500 miles east to west, 300 and some miles north to south, approximately 1,200 feet deep. On the northeastern corner are the locks at Sault Ste. Marie. Sault is linked to the word loo. Loo is the English word for toilet. I expect that a blind thrust will begin pushing upwards in that area, which will one day cause the locks to collapse. And that water will be headed mostly into Canada, but the destruction of the locks will weaken the peninsula, which is called Michigan, the northern peninsula, which is basically a wall holding back, about 300 miles long, holding back depths of water that goes down to about 1,200 feet. Now, consider a tsunami, which can put out a wave of 40 feet in height coming at you if you're anywhere near the beach. And compare that to 1,000 feet water coming onto Chicago, onto Detroit.
Wow.
Cleveland, Toledo, Buffalo, Rochester, Watertown.
And there's that flushing in Ohio, too.
I didn't hear that.
I said, remember, there's a Flushing, Ohio, too. A town called Flushing,
Ohio, and Flushing, New York. Water will pour all over, and millions of people will die because nobody listens.
Nope.
They go to church and read about Noah's Ark. They're adults. They're intelligent. Yet they read about a boat on which two of each animal is brought. And they can't seem to reason that that's allegory for the DNA of those animals. Certainly can't put two of each animal on a boat.
Hey, Glenn.
Yes.
Quantum computers, for quantum storage, it's measured in qubits, spelled with a Q.
That's important. Yeah. So, when's it going to happen? I've told many people many times that there's a window. We are in the big window. The big window, 2008, was supposed to be the point of transition for the universe. It didn't happen. It's still expanding. 2058 is the end. That's a 50-year period. It's a nickel, 50-cent piece. You got a singer out there calls himself 50
50 cent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that 50 years is basically the window. And within that, you're going to have 3 events. Water event, rocks falling from the sky event, and a nova, which is basically Gomorrah, means fire and brimstone coming out of the ground.
With the moon coming at the sky, like they just if they do that, it's just a piece of the moon, not the whole moon itself, right?
Well, who knows?
Because
the moon is a piece of the sun. It's not like the rest of the planets. It's made of the same material as the sun, so it originated there. Mm-hmm. And somebody knows what the moon is made of, and is it a hard rock all the way through? Mm-hmm. If it's a hard rock all the way through, of course it can be heated up and suffer a supernova, which is like blowing up an egg in a microwave oven. If it's empty in the middle, same thing. It could be hit from something flying in the sky and break into pieces. So there are many possibilities. The word Halloween suggests that's what it is, a hollow moon. Ween, the W becomes an M, and O and E are interchangeable. So it's basically a celebration of the dead, all saints. Last more than one day, I'm told by people who know about the rituals.
Well, I heard, I was watching a special on TV about, it was a what-if scenario if the moon disappeared. They said if we were to lose that moon, we'd go into like another ice age. The weather would change, so the action.
Well, you certainly have an effect on gravity, and that's tidal power.
Yep, it would be like all coasts would feel it.
Because what it does is basically pull on gravity as it rolls around. Yeah. But you also have the possibility, as Alder Amin, that's supposed to be the North Star by the year 7000, moving closer and closer. And because it has 23 times the luminosity of the sun, it may fill that nighttime sky, therefore eliminating any nighttime. The one thing we do know is that people who have been keeping records know that a precession is 26,800 years. And everything happens over and over again. Nothing out there that is new except a comet that runs into something and changes the direction like a billiard table. Everything else out there remains basically the same. And they've seen it and kept records of it at least 4 times. This is probably the 5th time they record precessions. So they know what's going to happen. They know that certain times it gets too hot on the surface and people take refuge underground. They know that at other times it gets too cold on the surface and people take refuge into caves and stuff. They know that if they've built an empire in a certain location The reason behind building it there is they've worked out how to destroy it. They put it in a place where it's sure to be destroyed. And the best way to destroy an empire is to build it in a place that is susceptible to destruction by water from the breaking of a land bridge.
And those guys like Lewis and Clark.
They did to the Red Sea. That's what they did to the Garden of Eden, which is today known as the Gulf of Arabia. That's what they did to the Bosphorus and created the Black Sea. That's what they're doing in Australia right now by tipping the continent, lifting it up on the western side, dropping it on the eastern side, blaming it on rain.
Yeah.
So why would they change things that have worked for them for thousands of years? Right now, the empire is America. And its job is over. Its shelf life has run out.
Wasn't it over in like the 70s?
Yeah, it's 1976.
Bicentennial.
484 years since Columbus's touchdown. 1492 to 1976. And then you have to add the window ledge at the end, which is 16 years, and the beginning of the new Phoenix, which is 16 years. So you go from 76, add 32, and you're at 2008.
What did Shakespeare mean when he said, "Beware the Ides of March"?
Well, the word Ides is dies. You die, and in the play, Caesar dies by the hand of a friend. Et tu, Brutus. March is linked to a certain activity which is giving new birth. It happens in Antarctica. The penguins come out of the water and march away from the edge of the ocean inland, about 65 miles or so. And that assures them that they're on solid ground. And they have the season of birth, new birth. The word March includes the letters CH, which make the same phonetic sound if you want it to be like in schedule as a K, which stands for the mission. March is linked to Mars, the former piece of this planet. Some people will tell you that Venus and Mars and Earth were all one place.
Really?
Mars has Mar, which is backwards ram, the male.
Yeah.
It's linked to the French word mare, sea, because it's Latin for the French mare. It's the sea, the oceans, the seas. And then it's followed by April, the fools, who never believe anything.
The willing fools.
Yeah. Starts in February with St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Lovers
The two
by not
lovers.
paying attention. St. Valentine's Day Massacre was an intra-mafia killing for the sake of taking power in the family. So February, March, and April. Lovers, birth, fools. So you make the babies, you give them birth, and you turn them into idiots. And what do you want them to believe? In the month of May is the month of Mary. That Mary was a virgin. And had babies. That may be interesting to somebody in the 1800s or 1200s. But we understand artificial insemination today. We shouldn't have any doubt that there are people out there manufacturing babies, which they then call foundlings, and put them into families so that their recessive genes will be transported out into other families. And we know they've been doing that since the end of the Crusades, when they created dual monasteries with priests on one side and nuns on the other. Not that the women who became nuns didn't want to have sex. They didn't want to have sex with people. They wanted to have sex with angels, with God. That's what Mary did. She had a baby, and they call it Jesus, which in Spanish, a J is an H. He's us. Johnny Appleseed went across America planting apple trees. Why? Because an apple has the five-pointed star at the core. The seeds are an allegory. And it makes booze, cider. It gave him an opportunity to hand out Bibles. And when he got done, Lewis and Clark took off from the Great Lakes and went all the way to California and Oregon. Purpose was the same.
I noticed they were Lewis and Clark, looking at their travels. I noticed that the Indians from North America, they had a practice that they did with, and the Indians from South America did, and it was like flattening their heads.
Yeah, flatheads in Montana.
Yeah.
All of the allegory of Sacagawea, the bag lady, Sac.
Yeah.
Bringing Lewis, which is a play on the word the whiz, out with Clark from the Ark.
Yeah.
The Lark. I mean, all it is basically telling the monks where to set up monasteries, where they can have baby factories. The nuns can always run out and tell you, oh, somebody left this kid at the door in a basket. El Toro poo-poo. It was made in the back. After the nun went through her last vows, she agreed to have sex with God. And the genetic engineer came out.
can imagine.
You saw the Latter-day Saints raids in Texas. You saw the altar that they have in the auditorium in that place. It's not like in a church where the priest stands behind the altar and speaks to the people. It's in between the seats where the people sit. It could very well be suited to have a ceremony artificially inseminating a woman. When they did the DNA testing, it wasn't to find out which man had 50 wives. It was to find out the links in the genome. Where do they come from? Who are they? What's the purpose? What recessive gene is being put in this one and that one and that one? Why are boys kicked out most of the time when they're young? They got to be put into society. They got to marry other people so that they can spread it.
So this DNA, this bartender makes this concoction, like, do they have to do much after they make the baby, or does the baby just follow the program, or they go through, process of like reinforcing?
It depends which program they're on, the crypt, or the blood.
Mm.
If you're talking about the crypt, it means you're working in a lab with the DNA of a dead person, and you're basically mixing and matching from a number of people's DNA what you want in the finished product. That one goes out as is. It's task specific. Then you have what they call the blood, is if one of these that goes out in the community and gets married and has children, and the children have children, and these children have children, the bloodline basically gives you some of the original, but not all. The numbers they use is what is 62% drops down in the second generation to about 11 or 12%. In the fourth generation, it's down to about 8%. So you want to hide a sleeper.
Sleeper cell. That makes sense.
Generation.
That's what they really mean by sleeper cell.
Yeah. And sleeper cell basically comes down to melatonin. That's what melatonin does. It puts you to sleep. So that's the use they make of what is our ancient life as fish or as reptiles. Neanderthals are known for having gone to sleep for a long time and coming out of the sleep as geniuses. That's why that gang is called idiot savants. Yeah. Supposed to be approximately 144,000, each one representing one task, and all put together makes perfect slave of any kind they want. They put all the tasks in one, but have a process of awakening a sleeper cell, different for each one. Like a computer. Yeah. You can awaken a program, take off the locks. That way they don't have to manufacture something separately. I used to get it when the first word processors came out. And you'd say to the company AES or Micom or somebody like that, I'd like to be able to do spreadsheets, something on my word processor. And they'd come over and give you a bill for a couple of $1,000, and now you can do spreadsheets. And you'd say, but you didn't put anything into the machine. You didn't do anything. And they would say, we unlocked it. It's already there. No sense sending it out and going to add it later. Just put it all in, and you take out what you need when you need it. So you get a guy who's basically quiet, ordinary person, lives next door, and one day he's meditating, and he receives a message by radio wave, and it unlocks a sleeper cell.
That's what happened to this guy.
He picks up a gun.
Yeah. That's what happened to this one guy. I was watching a guy who just had killed his father out of nowhere. Just he was Alex Jones listener.
They always talk about profiling.
Yeah.
Hey, if the person is doing something totally out of character, how do you profile?
Yeah.
Good point.
And I guess today's media, or even just people who have no way of explaining that, they will come to other conclusions.
Yeah. 3:30. Gotta run.
Hey, I wanted to ask, with the Neanderthals, I heard that their thought process was more like, if they, okay, you have one Neanderthal, and his offspring, or its offspring, will have the same, everything that the one, its predecessor, will have all of that, same thing. Like
You carry from one generation to the next all of the data collected since the beginning.
Wow.
When you were a fish, when you were a plant, when you were a reptile. You carry all of that in your gray matter. Some of it you have no use for today, but it's there. Some of it can be activated. A raft is the main code word in Freemasonry. They always refer to a craft, but they don't tell you that you discard number one. That's cosmetic. The words really begin at the second letter, and that's a raft. And in French, which is the language made from Latin for the use in the Western world, the word is radeau. R-A-D-E-A-U is the spelling of radeau. But the phonetics is R-A-D-O. Now, all the laws in Canada have to be signed by the Governor General. The Governor General lives in a house which they have called Rideau House, or Rideau Hall. Hall is for Haley's. Rideau and radeau are the same word in code. Since A and I, artificial insemination, you can invert the letters. The river that brings water to Ottawa from Lake Ontario is called the Rideau River. Leonardo da Vinci has radeau written in Leonardo, Ardo. NORAD, the defense of the North American continent, has radeau in it. Radon gas that comes from a nuclear generator or a mine area as radon gas.
So
If
go ahead,
you-
like, how
water,
do you...
you separate the mineral from the gas. The whole story is written in the United States under the title Huckleberry Finn. Got on a raft, went down the Mississippi. Raft has no controls. You don't know where you're going, but you go with the flow. And he stops and has different episodes in different parts of the Mississippi. I am told by native people, Huron, that that's how the second generation of Finns were made. By the Huron, in a place we call the Bruce Peninsula, just below the Lou at the Sioux. And those people who were made as the second generation of Finns in the year 0 were put on a raft and taken out of Lake Michigan and down the Mississippi. And they crossed the ocean being towed on a raft. Could be all allegory, or it could be factual. And they arrived in North Africa, Burkina Faso or someplace around there. Traveled across North Africa, guided by the Berbers, the same way as Lewis and Clark were guided by Indians. The Berbers took them to Giza. They would have arrived at Giza about 500 years after the building of the pyramids. They then moved across the Red Sea and went on. At that time it was called the Red River. So is the river in Fargo, North Dakota, leading up to Winnipeg. Then they went and established themselves in Hurry, northern Syria, from where they provided a pharaoh at about 1650 BC for Egypt called Akhenaten. The 18th dynasty brought forward genetic engineering in a harem, in the same way as it happens in New York City, in a place called Harlem. Why Bill Clinton keeps hanging around here.
Yep.
So it's a long story, could go on for months, but I got a bunch of goats and one sheep sitting in the barn over there saying, how come you fed the goats out in front in the field under the raft and you haven't given up?
How many sheep do you have? One sheep?
I have one sheep left. I had 3.
What happened to them?
A mother and a baby girl and a baby boy, and what I have left now is the baby boy, and he doesn't look like he'll survive much longer.
What is it, like just the cold? That they can't handle the cold or something? Or?
Well, they basically have been given a different lifestyle since we were ordered to lock up the animals. And since I didn't want to lock them up, I had to put them on a leash. Their lifestyles change. They have limited roaming capabilities, so they get a little depressed. It's like being in Ogdensburg alone.
Yeah.
That place looks tiny.
Yeah. So I gotta go, and I'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for calling. Hi, everybody. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Yeah. So is anybody up in there, over here? Who's clicked into the conversation?
I'm here.
And me. Just us three?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess. Yeah. I'm gonna turn this thing off. I guess I'm gonna get off, and I was gonna do the other one at 7:00.
Okay. Sounds good.
What?
Sounds good.
That's good?
Yeah, I think you should put this on the other one, too.
This one?
You don't think so?
Why? On the other one? I don't know. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna set up the other one. All right, yeah, I set it up, so I'm just gonna get ready for the other one.
That's 7?
7:00 Eastern Time. Eastern Standard Time.
All right.
All right. All right, bro.
All right.